Hello, everyone. Happy Women's History Month. Wearing my black Barbie shirt. You kind of see her for the video, of course, since we're talking about Black Barbie. And as always, before we start, obligatory self promotion. Poems inspired by What If I Ruled the World? Poems inspired by music. I don't know how to talk, clearly. Written by me, your girl. For Women's History Month, like I said, Poetry Month. Every month is a good month to get this book. And a little tiny book update about my new book. Still working on it. I have so many ideas. So we're gonna see how it goes because I just have too many ideas. But yeah, there's that. But anyway, we're here to talk about the Black Barbie documentary on St. Patrick's Day. By the way, happy St. Patrick's Day. When you see it, it'll be Friday, so it'll be past St. Patrick's Day. But I do have my green, so I will not be getting virtually pinched. But yeah, so we're gonna talk about it. It's a documentary. It's called Black Barbie. It is exclusive to next Netflix. Um, it's about the creation of the first Black Barbie in 1980, as the title suggests. Very self-explanatory title. It's released June 19th, 2024 on Netflix, as I said, by Le- Legeria Davis. She said her first name so many times in the documentary, and I was like, I hope I say it right. You know, when I actually say it in the video, so hopefully I did. So the cast, there were a lot of people. So I'm just gonna point out four important people that I think really made the documentary. But of course, there were a lot of celebrities. Gabourey Sidibe, love her. She was also I also read her essay in Well Read Black Girls recently, so she's all for the black thing. So I love that. Um, Maxine Waters, the Congresswoman, was in there. Misty Copeland. So there were some other celebrities. There were a lot of people, but these are the main people that I want to point out. So Kitty Black Perkins, she was the Black Barbie designer. Beulah Mae Mitchell, she was a Mattel employee from 1955 to 1999. She started off, I think, on the assembly line and then became a receptionist, from what I remember from the documentary. And she's also the aunt of the director, Legeria, and she's a doll collector as well. Stacy McBride Irby, she's a doll designer and diversity consultant. There we go. I can't speak today. Stephen Mandela Sumner is also a Barbie former product designer from 2007 to 2012. They don't have Stacy's like how long she was there on the IMDb page, but I think she was there for a while. She worked, I'm pretty sure, right under Kitty Black Perkins and was like, mentored by her. So that was really cool to see. Those are the four main people that, besides some of the other people that I mentioned, I wanted to talk about because the list was going to be long if I put every. But everyone is important. Everyone's experience in the documentary is very cool. And, I think that experts on African American history, uh, they had a lot. It was good. They had a good mixture of collectors, experts, celebrities, family members of Algeria. One of her family members created the Black Girl Magic. I'm not sure if it's a movement or she created like the actual like the trademark and everything. But she was in there with her daughter, so that was really cool. I already told you where to stream it. So I'm gonna go over my pros, my cons, and my overall opinion. So my first pro was I loved learning all like the new stuff that I never learned before. I love learning new stuff. You learn about Kitty Black Perkins and how she designed the first Black Barbie and why she designed it the way that she did. Specifically, of course, the afro, having the natural hair. And then the dress, she said Barbie's always wearing ball gowns. And then the Black Barbie, like she wanted to have a slicker dress, have it more to fit her. Um, while I'm describing this, editing self put a picture right here. So, you can get the feel, and then having the gold, black people love gold. Like, and then having the bold red. I just loved it. And then one year I was Barbie, which I've shared on my short video if you haven't seen it. I guess I'll just also editing self put that in here too. Um yeah, so I love learning about that and like why she designed it. Oh, and I learning about Shindana Toys. So the Mattel founders invested in this brand. Um I'm sure it was black owned. Let me just check. But it was basically they made like different kinds of dolls and made it very diverse. And I love that. Um and um yeah. It was launched as a black empowerment and community rejuvenation effort following the Watts riots. Um, so yeah, and I loved. They named it after a Swahili word, roughly meaning to compete. It was community owned and founded by Lewis S. Smith and Robert Hall. They don't have any Wikipedia page, but yeah. So, and I love seeing their dolls that they had. They had a bunch of different multicultural dolls. They had different baby dolls, and I love that representation. And I loved learning about that because I never knew that. And I never knew the Mattel founders. Like, it's really interesting that they invested in that, but then all of the black dolls they had originally were just Barbie's friends until Kitty Black Perkins made the official first black Barbie that was named Barbie. Oh, and then my next pro is the interviews doll collectors, including the doll's aunt who worked for Mattel. I loved hearing hers. The doll makers under Kitty Black Perkins, and after her, I talked about some of them. Stacy was, I think, directly under her, and then I think Stacy mentored Steven. I think that I think that's correct, or he was after her. One of those. And then he, I think, also made the first anniversary version of the first Black Barbie. I love listening to celebrities. They had their own dolls, and others talked about Barbie dolls. Um, oh, had their when I say they had their own dolls, like in their own likeness. That's what I mean. Like that's confusing the way I said it. And Shonda Rhimes, she was in the documentary, and she has two Barbies in her likeness, and she produced the documentary. I'm pretty sure she's one of the producers. Uh, and what they meant to them, and I loved them talking about that and like how whether they grew up with black dolls, whether they didn't grow up with black dolls, whether they grew up with a lot of different dolls of different races. I will say for me, I'm definitely feel like my mom definitely wanted me to have mostly black dolls, but I was a toy connoisseur. I loved all dolls, but I do understand the importance though of having a doll that looks like you, and then the people who didn't have dolls that look like them, how they felt. And they talked about the experiment with speaking of kids, the original experiment with the baby dolls. It's a very famous experiment, and of course, I can't remember the name of it. But what they think of like the black and the white doll, like it's the white doll was good, the black doll was bad, and all these different connotations. So that was cool to see as well. And all the kids' interviews were really interesting because compared to that experiment to now, um, their experiences with dolls now was very different. But they still recognize that Barbie, the white one, is the main one. Um, which it is what it is. But and then they basically mentioned how they wanted to be more diverse with the Barbie movies. So they talked about the Barbie movies too, which I haven't seen all of them. I don't think I've ever seen one. I watched the show, but now there's another Barbie, but they call her Brooklyn, but they're both Barbie. Barbie Roberts. So then she's getting her shine, but they want more of her. So I really thought that was cool, and I loved the history. Like they showed like a literal timeline. When Mattel was founded, when they had their first black people that came like Beulah May Mitchell, and the development of the Black Barbie, and then the first black dolls were just Barbie's friends, and actually having um an actual black Barbie. And she did and Kitty Black Perkins did another line called Sheena and Friends, or Sheena dolls, and they were more black centered, and I thought that was cool. And they also pointed out in the history that the first Barbie's friends were still pretty much just Barbie, just brown. Like the features weren't, typically African American, and then they fixed that over the years. So I really love seeing that timeline of Black Barbie, and then getting more representation over the years. And getting into that, my next and final pro was I love seeing the dolls. I love dolls. I said it in my short video. I'm a doll connoisseur, so it was good for me. I love seeing all the dolls, the original Black Barbie, the anniversary editions, Barbie's original Black friends, um, Shawnee and Friends line. Okay, I mentioned that already. Seeing Brooklyn and seeing, how what they meant to and what they mean to the future that holds for Black Barbies. So going from and then the Brooklyn, she has braids, and and also seeing the evolution of like Barbie dolls in general. From the different races, different. There was a athlete in there. She's a fencer. Don't remember her name, but she went to her job and she got her own Barbie. So it's like all these different ones from different disabilities, different races. Now they have different sizes. They have short ones, tall ones. They have the plus size dolls. I actually, now that that brings up a good memory for me. I did a project about Barbie, and her size and how small she was compared, like if she was realistic, she wouldn't be able to stand. I did this whole project like in high school or middle school. That brings up memories. So you can see how far we've come. Because I'm almost ancient. Not really, but yeah. But seeing how far I come from, like, how old was I? Maybe the early 2000s to now. Now we have, I mean, it's been a few years, but now we have a plus size Barbie with tall, short, different shapes and sizes now. So that was really cool to see. I do have two cons. I would actually just love a documentary on Shadana toys. I wanted to know, like, I know they weren't the main focus, but I would have loved to know more about them. That would have actually been really cool. So maybe Nigeria is working on that one next. That would be great. I would actually love to see that. Um, and then number two, I do wish we saw other celebrities with their dolls because they showed like three or four people: Shonda, the fencer, Misty Copeland. And I feel like there was one more person, but I can't remember their name. But I would love to see them more people with their Barbies. I mean, they showed them, but like actually them talking about the process and how it went. Like Brandy. Brandy's had like a couple black Bar, yeah, her own dolls. Destiny's Child. I know getting Beyonce would have been that would have been a lot probably, but that would have been fun. And other people have their own dolls. I would have loved to see more of that. All right. So my overall opinion. I loved this documentary. Once again, always a typo every video. I think it shows how important representation is and who gets representation in all types of media and entertainment. And I loved learning so many new things and gives me more dolls and toys related things to look up. As you know, I love dolls. I love toys. As an only child. Yeah. My imagination would run wild. I had families, I had storylines, I had different houses. They were on the buses, they were in schools. They had a whole back life. They had a bunch of stuff going on. So I love that kind of thing. I loved all the interviews, especially with the children and giving their perspectives. I love the timeline and the history. It actually shows how long progress has taken. And I'm gonna get into it, but and then we're kind of going back, or this new administration wants us to go back. Of course, I love seeing all the dolls, of course. And I love the evolution of Black Barbie and other Black dolls. And they showed the in style dolls, but now, like even now, there's I think they're called naturalistas, and they're like black and brown dolls. and they have the afros and long hair, and it's really great. I would love to know more about the Shadana toys, yeah, and I would love a documentary on that. Also, wish we got more interviews with people who had their own Barbies made. But overall, I loved it, and I highly recommend it. 10 out of 10. Definitely recommend watching it. And with the Oscars just happening and watching this documentary, I want to talk about, I'm going to rant about how representation matters. You know, like I've already mentioned with this current administration and this new swing against wokeness, it is important to remember representation matters. American culture has always been centering whiteness, and black and brown people wanting to show off their culture and ask for equal representation is a threat to the superiority complex of whiteness. Representation matters more than ever since it is trying to be so adamantly opposed, and we still have so many firsts still happening. For example, at the Oscars, no black woman has won since Halle Berry for Best Actress. I'm not sure if any were. I don't think any were nominated this year, but still. And then for Best Actress, I mean Best Supporting Actress. I mean, anyway, I'm not saying I liked the woman who played the witch in what was that movie called? Oh my goodness, in Weapons. I think she did a great job. Do I think it was Oscar worthy? I don't know. I think she did a great job, but I'm also like I wanted the black people to win everything because I do everything. I was rooting for somebody black. Um, yeah, and then Michael B. Jordan being only the sixth black man to win an Oscar, six, single digit. hmm Here we go. Representation matters from every aspect of play, entertainment, sports, and anywhere else. The kids in the interview showed that whiteness is still centered, and we still have so far to go because they were like Barbie's the main one, which I feel like Barbie's been here so long that she's a cultural staple, and we need a black cultural staple toy in other aspects of entertainment and life. Uh, when whiteness feels threatened, they think that black and brown people will treat them how they were treated, and they know they were wrong. That's why they don't want to be treated how they treat us. That's why they don't want to be the minority. Because what's wrong with being a minority? Huh? Interesting. So even in tours, we need to think of each other and prop each other up instead of being divided. White supremacy thrives on dividing races when really the working class, poor, black, brown, and LGBT plus communities need to band together in all aspects. Representation matters because we all deserve to see ourselves in what we consume. Yeah, that's my rant. Because I do think, obviously representation matters. Even if people say, "Oh, it's just a movie, it's just a this, it's just that," you want to see yourself in entertainment, even if it is just a movie, which is not. Even if it's just a toy, which is not, because that affects your self esteem and what you think of yourself. If you never see a doll that looks like you, then I'm like, oh, well, what's wrong with me? If you never see yourself in movies, then I'm like, oh, why isn't my story being told? So these matter. These things matter. If you never see another black ballerina, you're gonna be like, oh, well, I want to be a ballerina, but I never see any black ballerinas. It does matter. So yeah, are you guys doll fans? Are you Barbie doll fans? Are you baby doll fans? Are you fans of porcelain dolls? You know, what do you like? Or do you hate dolls and think that they are creepy and just unsettling to be around? Probably not Barbie dolls. You probably mean like the porcelain old, you know, dolls. I love all kind of dolls. I know some of them are creepy, but I feel like that's part of the charm. As long as they don't start moving, they're good with me. As long as they don't start harassing me, they're good with me. As long as they're not like Annabelle, or Chucky. Even though I do like Chucky movies, but it is what it is. Yeah, as long as they ain't bothering me, they're good with me. All right. When you watch this documentary, have you watched it? Let me know what your thoughts are. whatever you think. Always, as always, comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you all next week.